Hi, welcome to the webinar. My name is Tim Leary. I'm a general dentist in Menlo Park, California, which is Northern California. I'm a mentor here at the Schuster Center. I've been in private practice for about 30 years, and today I'm here with Dr. Jack King. Jack, maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I practice general dentistry in a small town in North Carolina, about 50 miles north of Charlotte. I've been in practice 28 years, have been involved with the Schuster Center for over 20 years now, about 23 years. So I was fortunate enough to start learning this information in my 20s, and it's had a real profound impact on my practice and my life. So I'm just thrilled to be involved in this and hope to be able to share something that might help you guys think your way through the phase of life you're in right now.
So we're going to jump right into the program, and the title we came up with is A Dental License and $350,000 in Debt. Now what do I do? So many of these concepts or these things that we're going to talk about have pretty good personal significance for us because we've been through the same path, and we've made most of the mistakes and done a few of the things right. And so our objective here is to just try to share our experience with you, the experience of some of our colleagues, and hopefully help you a little farther along your path so you get to where you want to go a little quicker. And money is such a big part of enabling that issue. Three things that we would like to really emphasize is that you better can learn how to control money, or money will control you. And the three concepts that we thought were maybe real important to introduce getting control of money were talking a little bit about debt, since you've come out of dental school with some debt from school, maybe some educational debt from college, and considering taking on more debt to either purchase a practice or maybe work as an associate, maybe less debt in that situation. But what do you need to know about debt to stay out of trouble? A power account gives freedom is a second thing we're going to talk about a little bit, and that just is basic money management that is probably universal across all businesses and all financial analysts, and that's the power of saving money, getting the magic of compounding working for you rather than against you. And finally, we're just going to touch a little bit on cash flow analysis. And here we're talking about a profit and loss statement, or if you're considering going into a practice as an associate, developing a business pro forma so that you can kind of analyze what the financial situation is going to be like.
Tim, just from my personal experience, I remember being absolutely, completely, totally ignorant in relation to what money was. When I graduated from school in '83, I just hadn't a clue as to what money was and how it worked. And so I was out there truly swinging bats in the dark, just trying to see if I could hit something. And this has been probably the most powerful thing I've learned, is how money works, what money actually is, how it flows, and what opportunities we have to make it work for us and not get behind the curve and let it work against us.
I love the quote from Peter Senge, true proactiveness comes from seeing how we contribute to our own problems. So a lot of these messes that we've gotten into or our colleagues have gotten into directly are a result of our own actions. So who do you want to be, Dr. Smart or Dr. Spend? And we just kind of wanted to remind you that the practice without a business plan loses between $3,000 and $7,000 a month. So it's a big deal that's going to affect the success of your practice in the short term and the long term. And it's also going to profoundly affect your personal life and the success and the ability, the freedom that you have in your personal life, what you do there. I have just a quick story on two dentists, younger dentists, that recently out of school, both of whom worked in my office as associates. One worked in the office for 4 years, the other one worked in the office for 5 years. And they both eventually went out and opened their own practice, one in the same town and the other one actually right in the same building. And one dentist is just real conservative. He likes to keep things small. He opened his practice in our building, and he did just the minimal investment of money and equipment and whatnot. He kept his expenses extremely low. He didn't have to take out a loan. He'd been working as an associate for a while. And for him to cover his monthly expenses, it took about $10,000 a month. The other dentist also tried to be very conservative, but she bought a small practice, an older practice, and it was so she didn't like the physical plant or the environment. She upgraded that, didn't do it anything excessive, but bought new equipment and did a remodel. And as a result of her practice loan and the equipment that she bought, the remodel that she bought, her minimum amount that she needed to produce every month just to pay the expenses, to pay the bills, not even give herself a salary, was $33,000 a month. So quite a difference between the two. The first fella, he just had to do $10,000 a month, and most of the time, I think after the first month, he was doing between 15 and 20 a month production, sometimes over 20, and that was all in his pocket. For the other dentist to net the same amount of profit, she had to do $40,000 to $45,000 a month, significantly greater amount of dentistry. I can tell you, meeting with both of them on a regular basis, she was under a tremendous amount of stress, and to this day has improved her situation, but still under a lot of stress because of the uphill battle that she fought as a young dentist regarding money. There's three kind of common patterns that we see dentists take with regarding profit that comes from the practice, and we're kind of going to try to nudge you towards profit and wealth building. A lifestyle practice is that dentist that maybe the practice financially does well, but every bit of profit that comes out of the practice is siphoned from the business to finance a pretty highfalutin lifestyle. Maybe it's a big house, maybe it's a lot of vacations, maybe it's new cars, maybe it's country club dues, but there's not really much thought given to saving and reinvesting in the business, reducing debt, or even in the personal life, trying to save for the future. The second common pattern would be a production or a high volume practice, and this is what we typically call the rat race, where you're in there and you're just working hard. You're really busy and you're working hard, but maybe you're not working as smart as you could. Maybe you're not as effective as you could be. And so you're not really making the profit. Jack, you want to add?
Yeah, I just would say this is exactly what I did, and I just want to share with you, it's not a place you want to be very long in your life. The rat race as a dentist is really stressful, and it's difficult to manage your own health and well-being when you are running around from room to room to room to room to room doing an incredible amount of mediocre dentistry. It's really not a lot of fun. So you may need to do this to some degree to learn about it, but I would strongly ask you to consider not doing this for your lifetime.
Boy, I can relate to that, Jack, because I've been there too, and I used to call what I did aerobic dentistry because I was racing from room to room and, oh man, on the roller skates, and that's what I did in the military, was work with a couple of assistants in a couple of rooms, and I thought that was the way to go. I could really do that in private practice, but I quickly found out that I didn't want to stay there very long. So really second those words. Finally would be the profit or wealth building practice, where you're still focused on taking good care of your patients, but you're also trying to run a profitable business. And you're really not as focused on production as you are on what's the net profit that comes out of the practice. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Quick comment here, if you've participated in athletics, you might have heard the line that defense wins championships. And from the book, The Millionaire Next Door, he studied thousands of people who eventually became millionaires, and he came up with pretty much the same thing, that it was defense or controlling spending that builds wealth. And well, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but just remember that controlling your expenses is as big or maybe a bigger part of eventually building wealth as it is how much you produce. So how much debt is the right amount? First, we'd like to just remind you of the difference between an asset versus a liability. An asset would be something that produces an income, and everything else is a liability. So, you might think of an asset, that your house is an asset or your car is an asset. The only situation in which a house would be an asset would be as if it's a rental property and it gives you income. Same thing with your dental practice. Your dental practice is only an asset as long as you work in it and patients are paying revenues into the practice. Very often early on you will be approached by salespeople, dental supply people, and they love to tell you how a certain piece of equipment, maybe just for example, a CERAC machine is an asset and it's going to bring money into the practice. Well, that CERAC machine or that laser or whatever that expensive piece of equipment is, unless you're there's a dentist or a human operating it, that's what really produces the income. And it may be a convenience, but it's really not, when you look at it in financial terms, an asset. It costs you something to run it. It costs you something to buy it. The cost of money, just a quick comment about that. You want to remember that when you borrow money, so-called experts will tell you, well, you can invest in this machine or you can buy this practice, and what it costs you to borrow the money is a write-off on your tax return, so it really doesn't cost you anything. Well, that's partially true. What is deductible on your tax return, as you get into this, if you buy a practice or you buy a piece of equipment, is the interest only. The principal is not deductible. And so in the early years, when you're buying down something for, say, a 5 or a 10-year loan that you finance, the first few years, there's a lot of interest, and so a good portion of that payment is deductible. Somewhere about midway through the payment plan, 2 years into a 5-year plan or 3 years into it, most of that payment is principal, and that's not deductible on your tax return. So make sure that you're clear about that and you have an understanding of what the money is really costing you. What's your nut? When we say nut, we mean what's your overhead? What's it cost you to keep the lights on and to keep people